Hi, I'm Demi Stevens, founder and CEO of You're the Book Press and editor-in-chief of Self Pub Magazine. We're here in the studio today for a little bit of a person behind the author series with Andrea Adams. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you, Demi, for having me.
Where do you live?
I live in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. It's actually about 30 minutes outside of Harrisburg.
Okay.
Yeah. Born and raised.
Oh, born and raised. Okay, so you're the long-timer.
Yes, absolutely.
What was family life like growing up?
Family life was very interesting. I come from a split household, so it was interesting seeing the different ways people live. My parents on the one side were very relaxed. On the other side, they were a little more strict and set a lot of boundaries and guidelines, but I'm very thankful for both of the sets because I got to learn a little bit of how life works.
My son has a similar experience, so I don't know if we're the boundary setters or the boundary breakers in this household, but
understand.
This remains to be seen. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have 5 brothers and sisters because of the split household. I have 3 sisters and I have 2 brothers. I am the next to the oldest in line, so I'm kind of the nurturer of the family. When people want to feel good about themselves, they tend to come to me.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're here today.
Oh, that's good.
When do you remember first wanting to be a writer?
Well, it is interesting. I never thought of myself as a writer, but the more I look back on it, I've always been within me. When I was in middle school, I actually wrote a short story and based characters on different people in my class. I even made copies and gave it to them. I know, very strange, I know.
If you meet Andrea in real life, you could be a character in the next
Exactly. I always warn everyone ahead of time.
Treat her good.
Exactly. So then in 8th grade, I actually wrote our musical that we had in our music class. We had to write a musical based on fairy tales, and I did the writing of that. And you know,
Twisted Fairy Tale.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And you know, in high school, I did a lot of poetry, wrote tons of poetry. So it's always been in me, and it just one day reunited.
Wow. Tell us a little bit about how you got from having a first draft of a book to actually being able to hold it in your hands in print.
Well, I actually subscribed to Writer's Digest first.
It's a great first step.
Yes, and they actually had a listing in there of all sorts of agents, etc. And so I explored a lot of that. I sent a lot of cover letters, sent copies of a couple of different chapters here and there. However,
did you get the obligatory pile of
I did,
slips?
Absolutely. And I started to get a little discouraged, but I said, if by the summer of 2010, no one's biting, I'm just going to self-publish. Well, in February, I actually sent my manuscript to Tate Publishing. Now, they're a partnership company. They're like a self-publisher in that they will... there is a charge up front that you have to pay. However, they only take 4% of all the thousands of entries they get.
But they assist you, so it's not DIY.
Exactly. They have a full-time staff on. They have editors. They have people who do these beautiful illustrations. They have,
I love the silhouettes with the theme.
Yes.
The same script.
Yes. Well, it's funny because whenever I was writing book 2, I said, it has to have him on the cover because the first one had her, and the second one kind of explores his background. So I kind of wanted to have him in the forefront on this one. So
can I ask what it's like? You have your document, I'm guessing, in a word processor.
Absolutely.
How does the process go from there?
Well, like I said, you send it via email to the publisher, and they, email back and forth. Hey, here's your copy of, these are our edits. They have highlighted and suggestions, and it's always suggestions. They never say you have to do it. This is what would make it from a good book to a great book. So that's something I really, really liked about them. They are out of Oklahoma, so it's hard to.
Oh yeah. So everything's email.
Or I've talked to my marketing person can tell you I talked to him many, many, many times with lots and lots of questions.
Questions are built in.
Exactly. But they've been wonderful, very patient, and And because they're a Christian-based company,
Mm-hmm.
they have very, you can tell, very strong values and really want to see you succeed. So
that's really a good place. You want to feel that support from your publisher.
absolutely.
So what from maybe the beginning of that process, what's your timeline like until you hold your book?
In this one, it is about a year-long process. Because they want you to get comfortable, and they take their time. Like for one whole month, they'll focus on the cover. Or for one whole month, they'll focus on what the inside font and everything looks like. Another month, they'll focus on the grammatical errors, and so it's kind of like it builds up over time. So
that's great. Do you find for your process, are you working on one book at a time, or do you write other things?
I usually write one book at a time. However, I wrote these two books very, very differently. Book one, it all poured out in sequence over a 4-month-long period, the framework. For the betrayal, it took a lot longer, but I would see like these little vignettes in my head, and you're like, okay, this would make a great scene. How can I work that in? So I had like all these vignettes and then kind of tied them together. So that was how I worked that.
So, all right. So on the marketing side, then you have a book. How do you publicize it once that comes out?
What I do is I have push cards. I do lots of craft events, craft shows, book events like the expo coming up in October. I talk to libraries, and basically it's about talking to everyone around you. And sometimes even it's about being silent and letting others talk for you, like the snowball effect. I mean, I have people out in Ohio that are selling my book. I have people in Indiana. So
you're evangelists.
Yes, well, yes, exactly. And that's kind of, what makes the experience even neater, to see people enjoying it and saying, hey, I really, you should really read that. So it kind of snowballed.
What was it like the first time you were on video?
The first time I was on video, I was very, very nervous. And everyone said, I couldn't tell, you did fine. I'm like, my knees were shaking. I'm glad I had the table in front of me, and it was interesting because
we didn't even need to do that today.
No,
You're so comfortable.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It gets easier each time you do it. But it's interesting because everyone kept saying how calm I was, and I thought it was an interesting experience to be able to go to ABC 27 and to see what the studio looks like. I mean, you imagine this huge,
it's smaller.
Yes, it's like the size of like smaller than like a ranch. It's like so tiny, and I could not believe all the things that they had, and like half the room was meet the urologist. That's what I picked up from. I'm like, oh my. So, yes.
So the after you got a TV interview then, and you're out at expos, how do you start thinking about the next book? Because inevitably people are going to ask you, what else are you writing?
Right. Well, right now I am actually starting to write book 3, and it's interesting because I will have ideas in my head, so I kind of keep like a journal with all my ideas. Okay, he has to have this, and this book's going to focus on this person, and these are kind of the outline of where I want to go with it. And for me, I find I'm most effective first thing in the morning. That's as soon as I wake up, I'll start writing maybe for like a half hour or an hour, and then kind of build it from there. So, but yeah. It's hard, especially when you work 2 jobs and are out also trying to publish, and to, encourage people market your book. So it's hard to juggle it all, but it's been a blast trying to find that time and to explore. I find it even exciting to explore where these characters are going, because sometimes I don't even know. I'll start writing and it'll just veer off in a different direction. I'm like, ooh, I like that. I'm going to keep that. So,
is there going to be a hunky FBI guy in book 3?
Of course.
Oh, good.
Of course, it's a series. It's it's the same characters. It's just each book kind of focuses on another character in their past and how they overcome. That
well, if in your head he starts to veer my direction, you just let him go, okay?
I will, absolutely. I'll send him your way, as long as you send someone back to me then.
Oh, yeah, karma really works.
There we go. Perfect.
We won't tell my husband.
Perfect.
so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Demi. I appreciate it.